Councillor Barfin and Councillor Coburn, we're just preparing to go live, so if I can have you guys enable your video feeds, please. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're now live. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Is there any add-ons to the agenda here tonight? Madam Clerk, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to request the addition of a closed session discussion in regards to, I can just pull up my wording here. Sorry, I should have had this pulled up. Okay, sorry, my apologies. So we will be adding a closed session discussion this evening regarding information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Interim CEO, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under unfinished business, I'd like to provide council an update on Angles Falls Road and Old Beach Road.
Thank you, Cassie. If there's no other add-ons to the agenda, the recommendation is that the council agenda be approved as presented. Someone to move it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Coburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Councillor Barfin, if you're not going to leave your video on, can you please indicate by voice for or against? Thank you. Are you for, Carol, or against?
For. I have my hand up.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, declaration of interest. You can declare anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of previous minutes. I have a recommendation here that the minutes of the special council meeting held on November 23rd, 2020 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfin, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion before us? Motion is carried. Special council meeting on November 24th. The minutes of the special council meeting held on November 24th, 2020 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Coburn. There's no discussion. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. The next recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting held on November 25th, 2020 be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfin, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? It's carried. We're down to announcements. I see no announcements here tonight. Public hearings, we have none. Presentations. We have a presentation here tonight by Ontario Clean ASC Service Agreement renewal. And I'm not sure who Madam Clerk is presenting here tonight.
That will be Jackie Mueller.
Okay, Jackie, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Brittany, do you want to pull up the presentation or do you want me to? Okay, perfect. So I can take control. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, Council and municipal staff. On behalf of the Ontario Clean Water Agency, I'd like to thank you for having us here tonight to present on renewing our partnership with the Township of Georgian Bluffs. To the next. Okay. There we go. Just I wanted to give you a little bit of background on Aqua and who we are. We are an arm's length agency of the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. We are a public organization that is not funded by the provincial government. We operate on a principle of cost recovery. We are the largest water and wastewater operators in Canada. At this time, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. I forgot to introduce ourselves. So I am Jackie Muller, local business development manager for Aqua, and with me tonight is via video conference is Leo Paul Fergault. He's the senior operations manager, and Leo's going to talk about Aqua's Grey Bruce Hub. Also going to talk about the regional support and give some updates on the Georgian Bluffs facilities. He's going to talk about some operations and maintenance, maintaining assets, and I will talk about Aqua support services. At this time, I will pass it over to Leo to... Oh, it'll go.
Thank you, Jackie. Mayor and council and staff. So essentially, this is going to be the following slides will provide a brief summary of essentially the outlines that Jackie just gave. So the slide that you see now essentially shows our local team. So if you look at so if we talk about feet on the ground, if you look at operator mechanics, just to give you an example, locally, we pull from a team of 7 operators, 1 maintenance lead, and 1 electrician instrumentation, plus instrumentation technician, plus a local process and compliance technician. Next slide, please. In terms of regional support, so I also pull. We can also pull from. So my boss as the regional hub manager. We have a safety and process compliance manager, regional hub business manager. I also have access to a capital manager regionally, and business development manager, which is Jack. So in a nutshell, if I do the math before we go to the next slide, our team in total, so I have directly access to about a team of about, or we have access to a team of about 16. So the way that I organize our staff, my local area is divided into 3 areas, which my area is called the Grey Bruce Hub. So the 3 areas are each covered by 1 rotation. So I have 3 staff covering each rotation to make sure that we have 24/7 coverage for each of the facilities. So staff dedicated to other areas of the hub provide assistance to the Georgian Bluffs team when required for major maintenance, for example. Teams will also require support from township staff and equipment to address issues such as water main breaks. Occasionally, teams will require support from local contractors to deal with major main break events. So next slide, please. In a summary, I'd like to provide just a quick summary of the facilities that we operate. So Charlotte Lake Water Treatment Plant, and we also run the water distribution. In a nutshell, this plant is capable of, its capacity is of 696 cubic meters a day. And we use, just to give you guys an idea, or everyone an idea, we are using currently about 20% of capacity for this plant. Next slide. The Potawatomi water treatment system. So this smaller plant, its capacity is basically 170 cubic meters a day, and in this case we use approximately 15% capacity. The photo that you see on this slide, I added this photo just to show, essentially, I referred to the team earlier where we pull from other areas of my area, I guess. So this photo shows in Potawatomi we had we had failures in the well, which basically I had to pull from other operators, my maintenance lead and our electrician to come in and provide support. We also had to bring in this case, a contractor to essentially pull the pump and the pipes from the well in Potawatomi, and essentially repair the pipes that were broken, and resume pushing water to the distribution system. Next slide, please. So the East Linton water treatment and distribution system, this plant has a rated capacity of 2,600 cubic meters per day. We, as of today, we're using about 30% capacity. In a nutshell, there are, if we were to move closer to 50 or 75% use capacity of this plant, or to reach or to get closer to 2,600 cubic meters a day, we would probably have to bring in a few changes or improvement to the plant, but still, we are still just using 30% capacity. The photo that I have included on this slide essentially shows a new air compressor that we had to replace a couple of years ago. It was essentially our team did the troubleshooting. The other existing, so we have two compressors in that plant. One of the compressors had failed, so we sourced and provided installation. Next slide, please. We also operate the Oxenden water distribution system, and in this case, just to give you everyone an idea, we push about between 68 to 120 cubic meters a day. That system, and we now monitor the flows via a remote SCADA system that was fairly recently installed, and actually the access to that monitoring system was provided to the municipality also. So, next slide, please. This one basically just shows the smaller drinking water system that we operate for the township. So we operate these three smaller drinking water system under OREG 319. Next slide, please. The operation and maintenance of your systems. So on top of your routine, we also provide, as part of this service, our current service agreement, 70 service locates. It also includes 36 allowable callbacks. I can tell you that our team we continually strive for process optimizations in all the facilities we operate, including all the Georgian Bluffs facilities. We perform water main break repair and water service leak repairs with the collaboration of the township staff. And sometimes we have to bring in local contractors, but we do it in close relation with township staff. We also perform distribution system leak monitoring and leak detection with township staff. Our team performs water service turn on and turn off that are required. We oversee the commissioning of new water mains, and we do that in accordance with the Ontario procedure for disinfecting water mains. Next slide, please. On this slide, I just, in maintaining our assets, I just included a few photos, and I'll just give you just a brief overview of what these photos represent to us and to the township. So the first photo, you'll see a SCADA screenshot. So with our local team that's very familiar with SCADA systems, we're very fortunate to have on our team a skilled electrician and instrumentation guy, and he has great support with Aqua's IT group and SCADA integration group. So upgrades were performed at the Shallow Lake plant between our local team and the Aqua SCADA integration team. We also did some SCADA work in East London, but mostly in Shallow Lake. The next photo that you see on your left is essentially the new, or I should say brand new, UV disinfection system that was fairly recently installed in the Shallow Lake plant by our team, and most of the work was done locally by our team, and with the support of our SCADA integration team with the programming. So this is also in the Shallow Lake plant as an example, and the photo on your right is a photo of a drive that was also fairly recently installed in the Shallow Lake plant that is now installed on the what we refer to as the fire pump. So essentially now the fire pump is driven by a variable frequency drive. So when called upon by either fire demand, so either use of fire hydrants or even flushing distribution system, the water that will be pushed in, that is pushed in the system, is basically on demand. Whereas before, the existing drive before was a soft start or and didn't run on variable frequencies. So what would happen? So if a hydrant was cracked open, your fire pump would kick on, and then if the hydrant was closed or just open for a short amount of time, so your fire pump would kick on and off, which in theory can create some issues in the distribution system and some headaches in the operation of that facility. But and I could go on explaining the benefits of having a VFD and UV systems here in your plant. But in a nutshell, I just wanted to summarize those few improvements that were done in your facility.
Thanks, Leo. I will jump in. Leo has done a great presentation on talking about the local staff with Aqua and what they do. With Aqua, you also get a depth of support, operational support, not just locally, but from the agency. With capital planning, we develop and implement long-term capital plans. We look at projected growth and capacity requirements. Also look at asset performance and level of service criteria. We also, with resource recovery, we have a group that looks into energy optimization, biosolids feasibility, and renewable natural gas. And we're actually working with Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth on a biosolids feasibility study currently. Energy and process optimization, that kind of goes in hand with capital planning and the resource recovery. Is we have a group that looks at energy savings and funding and is able to provide support to the local staff on energy savings and opportunities. At this time, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present on renewing the partnership, and we look forward to many years ahead, and we're happy to answer any questions if anyone has questions.
Jackie and Leo for your presentation. Does council have any questions of either Jackie or Leo? Councilor Colbert, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Jackie and Leo, for doing that presentation for us. It helps to highlight all of the great things that you're doing to make our drinking water safe and so on. I appreciate that. Did I hear you just say, Jackie, that Alqua is doing a feasibility study for us? Sorry, can you just expand on that a little bit?
I can. Leo, do you want to answer this one, or do you want me to?
Well, I can answer. So we are working with or Indra's group are working with the township in essentially feasibility that will look at possible improvements that could be brought to the existing biodigester, and that feasibility study is ongoing, and working for both I guess township of Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth on that feasibility study.
And just to add to that, is all funded. Indra has received funding to do that feasibility study.
Thank you, Jackie. In terms of Leo, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to make a few corrections. So actually that feasibility study we did receive a grant for. It's just the Township of Georgian Bluffs undertaking that study. We, I believe it was Tyler, so Director of Operations, brought forward a report to council, which you considered back in June, I believe, where you approved going forward with this study. We received about $75,000 grant for the study, and we are putting in an additional $50,000 to complete the study from the modernization grant funding we received.
Thank you, Cassie. That's correct.
Cassie, thank you for the clarification. It includes, so both townships are included in the operation of the biodigester, and my apologies for that comment there.
Okay, thank you, Leo. Does council have any other questions of Jackie or Leo? Seeing none, Jackie, Leo, thanks very much for presenting here tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our agenda then, Madam Clerk.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you. We're down to our delegations. Our first delegation is Ann and Clark Snyder about off-road vehicles. And Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. We do have Ann and Clark Schneider on the line. Ann and Clark, I'm going to share my screen and pull up your delegation package. So just direct me to move through as you see fit. Okay, Ann and Clark, go ahead. And you are muted.
Right. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. and council members for having us back. We're talking today about the Mount to Kimball Mountain Trail, which starts at concession 24 and ends at the Taylor Side Road. Can I ask a question if you can understand what I'm saying?
Go ahead, Ann.
Can you understand what I'm saying?
It's very muffled, Ann, but I'll turn over to Madam Clerk.
And if I could just have you disable your video feed, I think that would help. I think it's just straining your connection a little bit.
How do I do that?
So beside your microphone, where you mute and unmute yourself, there's a little camera option. Simply select that, and when a strike runs through the video, you have disabled it, and you have successfully disabled it.
Okay, so that is it better?
That's better so far, yes.
Okay, so we are talking about the Kimball Mountain Trail, which starts at concession 24 and goes up the escarpment and ends at the Taylor Side Road. And I would like to take you on a virtual hike of this trail. What you will need is a pair of really, really high rubber boots and really sturdy walking sticks and clothing that you don't mind getting very dirty. This first slide is on the section of the trail before you hit the escarpment. You can see the escarpment in the distance. Could I have
Excuse me, Anne, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you, Brittany, for a point of personal preference, I think it is. We're having, or at least virtually, we have a lot of reverberation, a lot of echoing. I'm not entirely sure folks are hearing everything that Anne has to say at the moment. And actually, I was experiencing that through the last presentation as well. I'm sorry, there's probably nothing you can do about it, but I did just want to let you know.
Thank you, Kathy. It's better here at the council chambers. I think everybody here can hear pretty good. I guess.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Carol.
I will echo what Councillor Colburn said. I'm getting about every other word. Yeah.
So I need some direction as to what to do. Would it be helpful if I connected with you by telephone rather than you work through the slides?
And yes, I think that would be helpful. If you
Could you walk me through what the number is that I need to dial?
So
Just
when you registered for the meeting,
Pardon me?
when you registered for the meeting, you received meeting details that also included the telephone number and conference line.
All right.
So I think what we'll do is we'll move on with our next delegation, and then we'll come back to you and Clark following that delegation. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And Clark, we'll be back to you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I'll move on to our next delegation, which is Sharon and Dean Davison. And Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
So Sharon and Dean, I have pulled up the first of your delegation package. Please, I echo the same instructions that were applied to Ann and Clark. Please direct me to move through your delegation package as you see fit. And you may go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Good. I'm just going to say a few things, and you can tell me whether you're experiencing the same feedback problems, because we were having that here as well.
Councillor
Any
Bartlett.
problems?
Councillor Bartlett, you have your hand raised.
I'm sorry, Brittany, it's breaking up. I'm on my iPad and it's breaking up so bad I cannot understand what people are saying.
It's the same here, Brittany.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, same for me, and it's not just our guest, it's also happening with other folks as well.
You just
I
bear-
can go to the phone as well if you wish.
Everyone, let's move to a 5-minute recess, please, while we deal with our technical difficulties.
Okay, we'll take 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, we are now live. Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you to open it back up to Ann and Clark.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess we're going to go back to Ann and Clark. We'll try it again. Please speak slow and see if we can understand what you're saying. So go ahead, Ann.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're on the Campbell Mountain Trail with your rubber boots and your sturdy walking stick. And we haven't started to go up the escarpment yet, but if you look in the background of the picture, you can see the escarpment back in the distance. Could I have the next slide, please? So the escarpment is getting closer. The ruts that you're seeing, by the way, are full of water, but they're actually fairly deep. So try not to walk in them with your rubber boots because you'll probably get a soaker. Next slide, please. So we're now working our way up the escarpment, and we're in what is considered the most natural protected area of the Niagara Escarpment Commission. Next slide, please. You're on top now. I stuck a stick in here, and that's about 3.5 feet deep of water. So there's another kind of foot above the water in terms of the rut. Next slide, please. What's happened up there is that the ruts get so deep, and you can see the bank on this rut, that the ATVs will move off of where the main trail is and go try another way. And if that one gets too deep, they'll try a third way or a fourth way. This is actually taken in the fall a year ago. So expect it to be a bit worse now. Next slide, please. When you're walking, you get to pick up really good souvenirs, whether it's beer cans, beer bottles. This one, unfortunately, was some kind of motor fluid, and it had a hole in it, so it was leaking into the soil. Next slide, please. This shows you how they've kind of, the ATVs try to make a way. So, and I suspect in some of these trails they're going onto private property. I'm not sure. Some of the places you'll see 3 or 4 different attempts or different trails that the ATVs have created. Next slide, please. So we've now made it in your hike to the top at the other side. So we're just getting ready to now go down the ridge towards Taylor Side Road. And the water here and the ruts here, we measured it, are over 100 feet in both directions. And again, a lot of the ruts are at least 3 feet, 3.5 feet deep. Next slide, please. So this shows you our area, and I'm sorry I couldn't get a Georgian Bluffs area, but most of what that walking, when you got up on the ridge, is in the most protected area of the Niagara Escarpment. Next slide, please. This is the South Bruce Peninsula ATV map of trails in our area as well as in the peninsula. And if you look at the map, you can see the Campbell Mountain Trail, and it's deemed purple. And purple means it's considered an off-road trail, and which I think means from their perspective that it's a mud trail. Anyway, the damage is huge, and I hope you made it through the hike without too much mud on you. And I'm going to pass it to Clark.
Good evening. We would really like to thank your mayor and the council for the work they've done in declaring the Curly Hardin Side Trail and the Len Hawley Side Trail as prohibited areas from ATV use. Also, we'd like to thank the staff for the work they've done in the new ATV bylaw. What I would like to do with the remainder of our time is to look at how you reached the decision to take ATVs off those 2 trails and how that decision making relates to what you're seeing tonight and what we can talk about tonight with regards to the Campbell Mountain Trail, because I think you'll find them extremely similar. As Ann said, this trail is predominantly in the natural and protected area of the Niagara Escarpment. And when we last spoke to you in July, we shared with you an email from O.J. McDonald of the Niagara Escarpment Commission that when we made a request to him about how these trails were seen by the Niagara Escarpment Commission. And in part, he responded with, he wanted to reassure us that you're moving, I want to reassure you we are moving forward with our investigation on these two issues. As these two sites are contraventions of our act, I cannot provide any further details. However, I wanted to let you know we have followed up with town staff and the file is now moving forward. So I have to assume that your staff have been notified of the contravention of this trail with the NEC Act. But further to that, I would like to suggest that the ATV use of this trail is also in contravention with the current Georgian Bluff strategic plan and the new ATV bylaw. Could I see page 11, please? The next slide. In your strategic plan, 3.2 says you are to protect environmentally sensitive areas and habitat. I think that has failed terribly with respect to this trail. And 4.1D, continually improve public open spaces to ensure accessibility and safety. In the new off-road vehicle bylaw, 2.8 says no person shall operate an off-road vehicle in such a way as to disrupt or destroy the natural environment, create a nuisance by method or frequency of operation on any municipal property, designated trail route, or highway within the township. It also contravenes and is not in the spirit of the draft Recreation and Trails Master Plan. As you recall, in that master plan, they looked at and suggested designating trails as primary multi-use, secondary multi-use, and recreational trails. And these were to be specifically identifying the capacity of the land to handle as well, by identifying surface types, widths, amenities, closeness to sensitive areas, neighbors, etc. That plan from Table 2 recommends that the ATV are only allowed on primary trails where it can be demonstrated that impacts to the natural environment are satisfactorily managed. It goes on to say that the surface should be asphalt, concrete, compacted granular, or other firm and stable surface. You can see when ATVs are not driving on firm surface, what happens to our natural environment. That section of Table 2 also goes on to say that you can have the motorized vehicles can go on secondary multi-use trails in certain sections where there's connectivity. However, it's provided that impacts to the natural environment and adjacent land uses are satisfactorily managed. We believe that the rationale and the excellent decision-making you made vis-a-vis the Curly Harden side trail and the Lanholly side trail are very similar to what applies here for the Kemble Mountain Trail. Those areas of decision were based on that the trail is predominantly in the protected areas of the Niagara Escarpment. 2, that having ATV use on this trail contravenes the Niagara Escarpment Act. 3, the trail surface cannot handle ATV use without sustaining serious damage as indicated by the pictures. And of course, this is against the Strategic Plan 3.2 of protecting environmentally sensitive areas. And 4, that the extensive damage has made hiking, walking, and other casual use in this area extremely precarious. And this again is in contravention of the strategic plan and trying to keep public open spaces accessible, and safe. So our request in this delegation tonight is fivefold. So can we have the next slide, please?
Thank you, Clark, and this is your 1-minute warning.
Thank you. So this is our request: to declare this portion of trail an area of protected prohibition of ATV use, similar to the Curly Hardin and the Lanhalley side trails, that the current ATV trail signs be taken down, that signs prohibiting ATV use be installed, that appropriate barriers be put in place at both ends, and I think very importantly that this action be communicated to the South Bruce Peninsula ATV Club, and they be requested to educate their members and to remove the trail from their club map. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ann and Clark. I wonder, Madam Clerk, if, since we have another delegation about some same matter, if we let them speak next, and then we'll deal with both issues? Okay. So I'm going to move on with Sharon and Dean Davison. If you want to give your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. I'll don these glasses or we won't be going anywhere. I've also taken the opportunity to write down my words or we'd be here all night. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dean Davison, and my wife Sharon and I have been residents of Derby and Georgian Bluffs townships for 31 years. Our home farm is located south of the village of Kilsyth on Concession 7. And for the last 5 years, we have owned another farm property to the west of and along the unmaintained section of Coles Road off Concession 24. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to our Georgian Bluffs administrative staff, particularly for their advice and guidance as I prepared for this delivery. I would like to thank our council for the time dedicated to the business of our township, as I do have some understanding of the commitment and effort involved. I would also like to thank Ann Clark Snyder for their thoughtful presentation. I too want to speak to the impacts of vehicular traffic on the Coles Road Trail, also known to many as the Kemble Mountain Trail. More importantly, I want to talk about trespass and encroachment on private property and the damage incurred as a result. In front of you, you will see that we have shared with your office a draft copy of the eastern boundary of our property situated beside Coles Road. The survey was prepared by Dinsmore in England. Following the advice of our lawyer, it was deemed important and necessary to determine property boundaries between ourselves and the right-of-way before any discussions were held with our township staff. The survey was secured at considerable expense to ourselves. The survey clearly illustrates, and if you could please roll it up just a touch, Brittany. Down a bit. No, yes, thank you. Keep going, up. A little bit at a time. So the survey clearly illustrates what you're looking at. You're looking at the survey on the east side. We're coming in from the north, which is concession 24. We're heading south. And if you can just scroll up just a touch more, you will see the bend of the trail swinging to the west. It swings to the west to circumvent around a large rock outcrop. It travels onto and through our property and and then it makes its way east and then back onto the right of way, as you can see there. Stop there, that's great. As you look further south, you will see a lot of drawing towards our southern boundary. And all those lines are encroachments onto private property as vehicular use operators try to navigate the water and the rough ground. We also share a chronology with your staff. Next slide, please. It's a fairly detailed one for recent activities that we had starting in 2019, but I'll make it short. The chronology we shared is of our recent efforts to manage the impacts of trespass and encroachment on private lands. Suffice it to say that we have engaged a lawyer, a local surveyor, and the Niagara Escarpment Branch as we prepared our case for the closure of this trail. The environmental damage has been sustained through the improper and at times reckless behaviors of trail users. Trees have been removed to widen the lanes and to create new ones in an effort to avoid the water holes too deep for some users and their equipment. Large rocks have been moved for the same reason. In places, soil has been dug and piled to the side to widen and deepen the water obstacles. All of this is obvious as you walk the mud slick of rutted, wheel-scarred soils displaced by multiple vehicles, resulting in a litany of water-pocked wallows too deep or too rough for many now to navigate. When we purchased the property, we knew the trail was part of a maintained section of the Bruce Trail Conservancy, and we were informed that there were some that used ATVs and snowmobiles periodically. The trail at that time, when we purchased the property, only had a few potholes and it was easily walked. Then we noticed more ATV activity. So 3, perhaps 4 years ago now, I decided to go online and found the South Bruce Peninsula ATV Club website. I read within the pages of that pages that they had approached Georgian Bluffs seeking permission to use Coles Road as an extension of their current trail system. And according to them, permission was granted. Not too long after that, ATV trail signs were erected at the trail entrance on concession 24 and along the trail going southwards towards Taylor's Side Road. That was when we decided to seek a lawyer's opinion and, as advised, began discussions with a local surveyor. And soon after that, we invited the Niagara Escarpment Enforcement Branch to come and view the impacts to the trail, asking them to form an opinion based on NEC policy for the protection of sensitive environments within their jurisdiction. If you can roll up to some of the pictures, please. The vehicular traffic has grown, well, and this is just a picture of where that particular property is, if anyone knows the area and wants to know exactly what we're talking about. We call the property 52 Rabbits. The vehicular traffic has grown by leaps and bounds on the trail over the last few years. And as a result, negative environmental impact to the forest floor is severe in places. Please remember that these pictures were taken in 2018 and a few in 2019. So the ones that Ann and Clark showed you are 2 years after the fact. So you can see the evolution of the degradation that's going on this trail. To be fair, it is not just ATV and UTV users. There are dirt bikes and 4x4 motor truck enthusiasts frequenting the trail as well. Over a short period of time, all have contributed to a growing list of damages to our property and to the trail as a result of their activities. That's me standing beside one of the wallows that they like to drive through. On our hay fields close to the trail and the roadway are viewed by some as an opportunity to do a few donuts, ripping up our grasses and exposing bare soil on every turn. And some decide to go for a run across our open fields. In winter, snowmobiles have been seen in the fields as well, even where stakes have been placed, indicating where small trees have been recently planted. We have a wonderful spring flowing from the base of the escarpment, a feature that tipped our decision towards purchasing this property. The spring and its outflow is well within the middle of our property. Over the last few years, it has been crossed over by ATVs, leaving their wheeled track depressions as evidence of their disregard for the damage done. The karst topography along the trail draws its own concern. Machines fueled by and carrying gas, diesel, and oil have broken down on the trail, with small spills resulting at times from oil pan punctures or when reservoirs are filled to overflowing. It happens. I have witnessed people repairing vehicles stranded on the trail. And this is the outflow from the spring, from the base of the escarpment in the spring. This spring flows all year long, even in drought seasons. We'd like to share this story with you and to support our concern. While on one of our fence line walks picking up garbage along the trail, we found a small kitty litter plastic bucket near full of used motor oil. We temporarily covered it as the rains had begun. We drove back to our home farm south of Kilsyth to fetch a larger bucket and headed back to the trail so we could set the smaller bucket into the larger one and carry the oil out of the trail and dispose of it safely. If that oil had spilled or overflowed, it may have worked its way through the karst rock and found the spring, thus polluting our spring water, which eventually ends up flowing into the Indian River. Such lack of consideration for the environment is unconscionable to me. Now, not all ATV users, or trail users, I should say, are inconsiderate. We have met some good people on the trail. The problem is the trail is not capable of supporting vehicular traffic. It is too fragile and is easily negatively impacted even by the well-intentioned. Our soon-to-be registered survey defines where the boundaries between our property and the right-of-way is and confirms a trail trespass onto our property. As a result, we can now declare that we will not be granting permission to allow vehicular motorized passage through our property. We think you can appreciate that we do not want to go through another season of motorized activities with many users unknowingly trespassing onto our property by just following the trail. We do request the trail to be closed and that the access points be posted as closed and sufficient, and that the entrances be sufficiently blocked to prevent possible entry. Please note that we are still considering what we want to see done to repair the impacts to our property due to vehicular traffic activities over the last few years. That being a discussion for another time. What you see there is myself standing with the enforcement branch officers from the NEC. That would be back last May, 23rd of May. So what we want to do here, my wife and I, is that we want to thank you for the opportunity to share our views. We hope this information will be useful in your decision-making process. Hope that you enjoy the upcoming holiday season. And from Sharon and myself, we wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you.
Thank you, Dean, for your presentation. Now, waiting to be able to turn this over to our interim CEO. Go ahead, Cassie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Davidson for calling me last week and making me aware of his issues, or concerns, I should say, with people trespassing on his property. I was not aware of those concerns, and it was very helpful, so thank you. Mr. Davidson is correct. He has sent the preliminary survey to myself, to confirm that the trail deviates onto his lands. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about next steps. So I have a meeting set up next week with OJ McDonald from the NEC. He, myself, and Tim Lewis, our bylaw enforcement officer, are meeting on site at the trail that we're discussing tonight to walk it. And OJ wanted to show me his areas of concerns, as well as discuss, remedial work that needs to be done to correct some of the, or at least, I don't want to say correct, to assist with some of the environmental impacts that have been created by the ATV use. So I have that meeting next week. After that meeting, staff will bring a report back to council on with our recommendations for what to do with that trail, as well as report on any remedial activities that the NEC is saying we must do.
Thank you, Cassie. Really look forward to that report. And as Ann has indicated, take your rubber boots, you go for a walk. Dean and Ann Clark, hopefully you can see that the township is trying to deal with the issue. Our interim CEO will walk the trail with OJ and our bylaw enforcement officer, and we look forward to the report coming back to council. So hopefully that will pacify for the interim until we can get a report come back to council. If that's okay, I'll ask any council member, do they have any questions they want to ask on this presentation? Kathy, go ahead.
Just a quick thank you to all of the presenters here tonight. We appreciate hearing your perspectives as ratepayers. I would like to say that when I saw this on the agenda, I tried to do that hike. I consider myself to be in pretty good shape, and I couldn't do it. The ruts were too deep, the water was too deep. It wasn't safe, it wasn't navigable, and it's shameful. I would just say hats off to Cassandra for helping us move this forward, because she hasn't been in this position before. I think that's commendable. I will say, however, that we've known about this issue for several years, and I find it somewhat unconscionable that it takes ratepayers to come and do this kind of delegation. Their time, their expense, all of that is, I'm just not quite sure why we're expecting ratepayers to do our job for us. We've known that the Coles Trail and the Mountain Trail were in exactly the same position environmentally wise as the side trails. I would ask that as a council, our direction to staff be that we're more proactive. We know the areas in our own municipality that are sensitive and are not being used properly. Let's not wait for ratepayers to have to do our homework for us. Thank you.
Does any other council member have? Councilor Barfoot, go ahead. Okay,
I would just like to thank the three of you for coming with all the pictures. At my age, I'm not about to go out and hike the trail, so thank you very much for all the pictures. It explains it very well. What disturbs me the most is how inconsiderate some users are, and I think you covered this, Dean. It's not everyone, but I think it's the township's responsibility to stop it. We've known about it for quite a while. I want to see this done and over with and cleaned up, so when your hay crop comes up next year, you're not going to have ATV going through the hay field. And thank you so much for Cassie for grabbing the reins on this one. It has to be, we've known about it for years. Let's correct it. Let's not go on for more years. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot. If I see no other questions, we have a direction in place we're going to head. We look forward to the staff report coming back. So I'll move forward with our agenda, and thanks very much for our guests for presenting here tonight. So let's move forward with our agenda. We're now down to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that the council member would like to pull for further discussion? Seeing none? The recommendation is that the Council of Township of Jordan Bluffs adopts a consent agenda for information as circulated. And I'll ask for move in the sector after I've read the motion. Sorry, first time. I'll ask for a mover to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. If there's no discussion on the motion before us, all in favor of the motion? It is carried. We're down to correspondence. We have one piece of correspondence from Rick West, hidden driveway sign. Madam Clerk, will I turn this over to you?
Yes, I can speak to this briefly, Mr. Mayor. This came to my attention at both the request of Mr. West as well as Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Sutherland had contacted me in regards to how to move forward in assisting Mr. West in his requests. So as Mr. West indicates in his correspondence, Mr. West has been working with the Ministry of Transportation for quite some time now regarding additional signage outside of his property. So I don't do a very good job at describing where his property is, but please bear with me. So on the Sunset Strip driving towards the car dealerships, there are approximately 3 homes that sit atop a hill, a slight hill. So Mr. West has been working with the Ministry of Transportation to have some sort of solution regarding regarding signage on the Sunset Strip, which, as you are all aware, is a provincial highway. So the township does not have jurisdiction over this roadway, therefore we cannot erect the signage for him. What Mr. West is looking for is a sign that indicates a hidden driveway entrance, and he's looking for council's support by a notice of motion to send to the Ministry of Transportation in favor of erecting this signage. As I said, the township does not have jurisdiction over this roadway, so we cannot approve erection of the sign. However, we can support his ask and forward said ask to the Ministry of Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I'll ask for a council member to bring a notice of motion forward. Councillor Colburn, I think I see your hand up. So Councillor Colburn will bring a notice of motion forward supporting the request for a hidden driveway sign. Okay? Let's move on for our agenda. We're down to committee reports. We have none. Staff reports. Recommendation is that the renewal agreement between the Township of Georgian Bus and Ontario Provincial Police under Section 10 of the Police Service Act for police and services with the Township be authorized for a 4-year term, and bylaw 2020-131 to authorize agreement be enacted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Bartlett, second by Councillor Pringle. Do we have any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Moving on to the agenda. The next recommendation is that the council hereby authorizes renewal the lease agreement between the township and Her Majesty the Queen, represented by the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans, for the use of the Big Bay and White Cloud Island dock facilities, and that a berthing license agreement for the use of the Big Bay dock by Griffith Island Club is also approved, and that bylaw 2020-132 and bylaw 2020-133 authorizing both agreements be enacted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
Just a quick question, just confirming that this is status quo. There's nothing new or different here in this, in these bylaws?
Madam Clerk?
There is nothing new in either of the agreements. The Griffith Island berthing license does look a little bit different, simply because I had both our legal team as well as the federal ministry review the document, and they did have some minor tweaks to make to it, but they were very minor amendments and did not change the intention of the agreement.
Thank you, Brittany.
Councillor Colburn? Okay. If there's no other discussion on the motion before us, all in favor of the motion before us? It's carried. We're down to our next recommendation that the Council of the Township of George Bluffs award RFT 2014 to Serve You Clean Incorporated, and that the service agreement with Serve You Clean Incorporated for cleaning services at the administration office for a period of 2 years be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Colburn. Madam Clerk, do you wish to speak to this?
We have our facilities coordinator, Zach Carson, on the line, should council have any questions.
Okay. Zach, any comments?
I don't really have any comments. The contract with our current cleaner was due to expire, so we were proactive in getting this tender out and getting ready to proceed. So I can answer any questions if there's any.
Does council have any questions on this motion before us? Carol, go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. How many responded to the RFT?
We had 5 companies put in a bid for the tender.
Okay, Councilor Burke.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you.
See no other questions, all in favor? I guess, Councilor Colburn, you didn't have a question, did you? No. All in favor of the motion before us? It's carried. Moving off our agenda, we're down to our next recommendation is that the Council of the Township of George Bluffs receive the 2020 capital project update report for information. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Barfus, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Our next recommendation is that the council approve awarding RFP 2020-15 for the completion of an organizational comprehensive review and PSC 02. Is that called PEACE? And Associates at a cost of $47,600 plus HST to be funded from the modernization grant reserve. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Barfoot. Madam CEO, did you want to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you can see in my report, we got a number of proposals related to our organizational review and compensation review. I was really happy with the amount of interest we had in this. And when I went through the evaluations, you know, there was my top 3 proposals that stood out for me, and I felt, you know, really captured what the township was trying to do here. At the end of the day, I'm recommending, and I don't know how to say their name either, Pesci and Associates. What I really liked about their proposal, and it's attached for your review, is the amount of engagement that they want from stakeholders. So all of council, all of staff. And I really think engagement is important in this process, you know, so that you get buy-in from council and staff to the recommendations being made. I would hate to see a recommendation be made and someone not support it because they didn't feel like, you know, they got to give input. So to me, that really put this proposal at the top, and that is why I'm recommending this company to do those reviews.
Thank you, Cassie. Does council have any questions on the motion before us? Councilor Colburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. I noticed in their specifics under their work plan, Cassie, they talked about consultation with a cross-section of staff and council. I know this is just part of their submission to us, but I would hope that all of council would have an opportunity to interface with this particular company and offer up our own thoughts, not just a cross section of. So I'm assuming this is not carved in stone, this particular plan. My second question, if I may, is I noticed that there are other tenders that are significantly cheaper, I believe, than these folks. So I'm wondering, I guess what I'm really wondering is, have we used this company before? Or do we know of someone, another municipality or the upper tier locally who has used this company, and we're getting some recommendations from those places?
Councillor Coburn, I'm going to let our CEO answer those questions.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. So when you read further in their work plan, they talk about talking to all of council in a group interview, and then interviewing, a few councillors one-on-one. But definitely it's just a plan, and we can have those conversations should you feel that all of council need a one-on-one interview versus a group interview. But all of council will be spoken to. Secondly, you're right, there were there were cheaper proposals. But what I found is some of those proposals were lacking. So for example, a few of them didn't have any recent experience in performing this type of works. One of the proposals, the last time they did an organization like this was 2012. So for me, that moves them near the bottom list, although they might have been cheaper. Without recent relevant experience, I didn't feel they were the strong candidate for this. This group did provide references, and we did reach out to them. In my report, I did detail that they have done some work locally as well, and they have a wealth of experience with these type of engagements.
Councillor Coburn, was your question answered?
Yes, thank you, Cassie. No, I'm for sure interested in hearing more about how they intend to interact with each of us, and I'll definitely be plugging for one-on-ones with each council member. So again, I guess my question is, have we worked with this group before, or do we know of a municipality locally who has? And I know you probably can't identify those, but I'm just wondering if we've gotten recommendations or if we've used them in the past.
Cassie, go ahead.
Thank you. So we have never used this company before, but one of the things that happens during the compensation review process and the organizational review process is when they're looking for comparator municipalities, they reach out to them and ask for their organizational structure, they ask for their pay grids, and we have responded to this company providing them that information on a number of occasions. In my report, you'll see that they've done some work with Grey County, they've done some work with Grey Bruce Health Unit locally, and they've done a lot of work with lower tier municipalities.
Okay. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Cassie.
Councillor Burke, your hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Cassie, just refresh my memory. Did they say they could start December the 7th?
Yes, they did.
Okay. My concern with that is, and we discussed this before, I would rather our new CAO be here when they're here.
I will be.
That can be arranged. So, all of this is just a tentative timeline. So what we can do is upon awarding the contract, I can reach out to them and let them know that we're working on a new CAO and this person is expected to start such and such a date. Let's hold off on starting the process till they arrive. But I think in the beginning, they'll be gathering a lot of information that currently exists, being our pay grids, organizational charts and stuff. So I can provide them with that information and get them going before the arrival of the new CAO. Because that information exists that they will need.
Okay. I don't want to see our new CAO not having some input into it. Let's get him on board and a little familiar with the, I think January is lots of time for them to start.
I hear your concerns, Councillor Barfoot, and I agree that the new CAO does need to be involved in this process. And we will work with the timelines depending upon when that individual starts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Good comments. If there's no other comments or questions from council? I'm asking for, what am I asking for? All in favor of the motion?
I have another question, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Carol.
What is their workforce number? Like, how many people do they have working for them?
I'm not sure, Carol. I can ask them that. In their detailed plan, they outline who the professionals would be working on this particular project, but I'm not sure what their entire workforce is.
Okay, all in favor of the motion before us? Is carried. Moving on our agenda, we're down to our next recommendation is that report PL 2020-52 regarding the Township of George West official plan 2021 update from the senior planner be received, and the council support the staff recommendation to complete the update in-house, and the council directs staff to carry out the necessary works to update the official plan. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. I see the planners all appear on the screen, so Jen, are you going to take this on first, or who's taking it on?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I won't reread the report. As you can see in the report, we are required to update the township official plan, and we've provided the justification through the report for the update. Devin and I have sat down, we've reviewed the scope of the upgrade, and we are recommending to council that we can complete this update in-house. There isn't a need to hire planning consultants to work with us to do this. We have had preliminary meetings with the County of Grey and discussed utilizing their mapping service to help us update some of our schedules, as well as we have had some correspondence with the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority just to determine the required environmental hazard mapping updates, which will be done through the county. We are also, we've also been engaged with Ryerson University, and this semester have had a planning student working with us, providing detailed term report on one specific issue, which was second units, providing us with information. We are going to be having another student with us, potentially two, and that student will work with us to provide background research to help inform our official plan. We're just looking for direction from council to support the official plan update so that we can begin it, and then just for direction that we can, to direct us so we can carry out the necessary works. Those necessary works will include providing information online to residents, scheduling virtual open houses. We realize that we can't have the same format that we did with our zoning bylaw. So we're going to have a number of different opportunities for residents to be able to participate in virtual meetings, as well as we will be posting information on our website so that that residents can access it when they have time as well. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll just point out that with this report, we did provide a spreadsheet that talks about the topics that need to be covered. The legislation that's requiring us to include this in our official plan, as well as the rationale for the change. And there are a few topics in there that we have included because we know that they've been brought up by residents who are concerned. So Airbnbs is one of them. Cannabis operations in a settlement area is another one. And sorry, I've forgotten the third one that we were looking at. And as well, through this process, if there is another issue that council would like us to address in our official plan, we can include that as well.
Thank you, Jen. Devin, I see you on the screen. Any comments?
I think Jen did a great job. I guess my only comment is we're really excited to get the official plan update going.
It's nice to see planners excited. Does council have any questions of our two planners on this motion?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Jen very much for addressing two issues in particular, and you know the ones that I've been pushing.
That's right.
Addressed. I still get many complaints about Airbnb and also about the cannabis, and I spoke, Mr. Mayor can take something back to the Police Service Board about my cannabis concerns, but thank you, Jen, for addressing that.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot. Councillor Colburn, were you waving or did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Carol's comments and how excellent is it to hear we can do this work in-house. I mean, that's music to our ears, and the fact that you're using students as well, I just think that's terrific. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and it's a great report. If there's no other discussion on this motion before us, all in favor of the motion before us? Thank you. It's carried. Now you can go to work. We're down to our next recommendation is that the report PL 2020-53 regarding updating the official plan provisions as they relate to secondary units be received for information. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. Jen, do you want to speak to this?
Yes. Unfortunately, our planning student, this was the one of the tasks that was part of his work term with the township was to present a report to council. In the report, he wasn't able to join us at the last minute, so I know you've read the report and you can see that he's gone and done some background research, talked about what the relevant policies are when it comes to second units. He's reviewed a number of the plans in other municipalities as well as the county, and just made some recommendations on how we can make our official plan a little bit more reader friendly, so that when our residents go and they read it, they understand what it is, what's permitted for second units. He's also made some recommendations just to clean up the language so that we're consistent with the county plan. It can be confusing for residents if we have different terminology in our plan than what's in the county plan. And then that's not part of this, he's proposed the policy that can be included in our OP, as well as he's come up with zone provisions. So we know that once the official plan has been updated, second units was one of the struggles we had with our zoning bylaw. In settlement areas, we couldn't change the language to be more permissive of second units in settlement areas because our official plan required a zoning amendment. So we're taking that requirement out and making it second units more permissible in the township in accordance with provincial policy. So this is an example of what the other students will be doing for this next semester. So hopefully we have two students with us, and we will give them a specific topic to work on and provide us with policy, provide us with associated zoning, background reports, as well as a report to council to explain the proposed changes. So if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does council have any questions of our planner? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? It is carried. We're down to public question period. Madam Clerk, is there any one on our public question period?
No.
Thank you. Moving on for agenda, no zoning bylaws. We're down to other bylaws. Recommendation is that bylaw 2020-131 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement for the provisions of police service further to section 10 of the Police Service Act, RSO 1990, be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation, endorsed on the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Our next recommendation is bylaw 2021-32 being a bylaw to authorize a lease agreement with Her Majesty the Queen as represented by the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans for lands at Big Bay and White Clyde Island. You read a first, second, third time. Finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, seals the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Any discussion on the motion before us? All in favor of the motion? It is carried. Our next recommendation is that bylaw 2021-33 being a bylaw to authorize a birthing license between the Griffith Island Club be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, seals the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, all in favor of the motion? It is carried. Moving right along, our next recommendation is that bylaw 2021-34 being a bylaw to appoint members of council and the public to various committees and local boards be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor Barfoot.
Okay. When we sort of got blindsided when that come up, but when you discussed it, it sounded to me like all those decisions had been made before we even discussed it. The deputy mayor made a comment about all the expensive training was the rationale for not changing some of them. I just wondered what extensive training she was talking about.
I'm going to turn it over to Madam Clerk for a minute, Councilor Barfoot. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
So thank you, Councilor Barfoot. You kind of beat me to the punch. So I did want to briefly talk about this bylaw prior to enacting it. So I simply included it this evening because we had talked about it at our last meeting. And these appointments do need to be renewed prior to the end of the year, but that doesn't mean we have to pass them tonight. So I simply put it on so everyone had the information in front of them. As we talked about at our November 25th meeting, Deputy Mayor Carlton brought up that the Library Board and the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority Board may have 4-year appointments associated with them in the provincial legislation. That is the case with the Library Board. That is not the case with the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority Board. The Act says that members shall be appointed for a term of up to 4 years, not that they have to be appointed for 4 years. So I did reach out to the Conservation Authority, being Grace Harbor, and their CAO, Tim Lanthier, to confirm that their administrative policies did not limit changeover in members of council on the board, and they do not have any policies to that effect. So should council decide to do so, we can pull this bylaw and amend the appointments as they stand. I have left the appointments on both the Library Board as well as the Conservation Authority Board the same, but I'm open to discussion should we want to pull this and enact it another night.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Colbert. Oh, just a minute. I'll go back to Councilor Barfoot first. Go ahead, Councilor Barfoot.
It was just, I wanted some clarification because some of what was discussed is not actually what has gone on in the past. We have to remember we have 2 new councillors there that possibly they would like different committees. And I think they deserve the opportunity. Nobody seemed to want to put their name forward. I think they were maybe a little blindsided. But I do know in the past, Conservation Authority has changed after 2 years. So thank you for delving into this because I just want the correct information to be out there.
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot. Councilor Colbert, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just, I guess, concur with a lot of what's been said. I really feel like in the spirit of offering up opportunities amongst all of council, I think it would be most appropriate for us to submit some of our preferences. I know personally, I'd be happy to give up my post on the fire department board. I believe that's one that could be reassigned. I'm officially off, as is Councillor Barfoot, the multiple municipality wind turbine working group. So that's a change for me. I am interested in putting my name forward for the Conservation Authority, and I can assure you I will be up to speed quickly and won't be charging the municipality anything extra for training or getting myself up to a point where I can contribute appropriately. So I would just echo Councillor Barfoot's recommendation that we be allowed to put our names forward for a variety of different posts.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. So it sounds to me like we should pull a bylaw tonight, since we do not have two other councillors here. I think we should have all councillors here to do it. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was going to be my recommendation. I say we pull this bylaw and defer it for further consideration at next week's meeting of Committee of the Whole, when we have both Councillor Thompson and Councillor Sutherland available as well to comment on where they'd like to sit and where they wouldn't like to sit. And then we can enact the final bylaw at the December 16th council meeting, being our last meeting of the year.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Garfoot. When I commented about the expense of training, I was referring to Grace Sabo, and they, at the beginning of each term of council, put a huge amount of work into training everyone going onto that board. So I was referencing them. My reason for thinking it went as a 4-year appointment was just something that had been said at Grace Sabo recently, where it was just indicated, and that's why I wanted it checked out before we went ahead. I've been on Grace Sabo now for 4 years. If someone else wants to take that one on, I would gladly give it up, because you don't just sit on the board of directors, you are expected to sit on at least one other committee. I currently sit on Foundation. I think the mayor is on Forestry, and we both also sit on Indigenous Relations Working Group. So maybe you need to be aware going into that one, it's not just that one committee. You're expected to be on a lot more than that. So just thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it is a very, very intense committee, and so we have pulled it. Councillor Barfoot, I see your hand up.
Okay, I just want, in the past, we've always had open discussions amongst the councillors. I keep hearing about, oh, we got to be a team, we got to be a team. Well, let's open it up. Let's let the councillors put their name in for what they would like to do, or let's have open discussion, not a dictatorial type discussion. It doesn't feel right to me. I don't know how long you've been on Conservation Authority, Deputy Mayor, but I know Judy Gay was on it, and I don't think it was for 4 years or 6 years. We used to always change committees. It's nice to get a comfortable shoe syndrome and stay the same. That's not being fair to new councillors either.
Thank you, Councillor Burke, for that. And to refer to your comments, that's why we're pulling the bylaw. So next council meeting, the 16th, we have all council here together. So every council member is going to have an opportunity to put their name forward for any committee they wish to sit on. The ones that they can't sit on that are open. Madam Clerk?
So just to clarify intentions, we will be presenting the bylaw, or defer the bylaw for further discussion at the December 9th Committee of the Whole meeting, at which time we would welcome all council members to put their names forward for any committee that they're interested in. My apologies, that was my intentions last week as well with the report that we had presented, but we will pull this bylaw this evening and consider it next week for final ratification at the December 16th council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that motion has been pulled.
Mr. Mayor, if we could just have a motion to defer the item, please.
Okay, the motion deferred, moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle, that this motion will be deferred until December 16th.
Until December 9th.
So, sorry, December 9th, right. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Moving on our agenda, unfinished business. Do you want to do your two under unfinished business? Okay. Madam CEO, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the mayor actually asked me tonight to give an update on Ingalls Falls Road and Old Beach Road. So Ingalls Falls Road, we've been getting a number of calls and concerns from residents along that road about essentially a lip that has been created from the road to their driveway because of the construction. The final layer of pavement is not being done till the spring. So the contractor and our engineers we're supposed to be out on site today to go through and see how they can do like a temporary fix for the lips of the driveway, as well as some ramping for our plows. So because that final layer of asphalt is not in place yet, there is a lip at each end of where the construction took place. So ramping is needed so that our plows don't dig into that lip. So that meeting was supposed to take place today. I apologize, but I did not follow up with the engineer today. I will do that tomorrow to see the results of that meeting. Secondly, I sent out an email yesterday to council informing you about the closure of Old Beach Road. We also posted the closure on our website as well as Municipal 511. The road flooded out. We reopened the road today. The waters receded enough that we were able to reopen it, and our Public Works crews are currently working on cleaning up the rocks that washed up on shore and onto the road. Some of them were frozen to the road, so we've had to take some heavy equipment down there to scrape them off, but the road is reopened at this time.
Thank you, Cassie. Before you go, Cassie, just a question on Ingalls Falls Road. I believe the council gave an extension to the contract to the end of the month, and I'm just wondering what's going on with that? Are we given another extension to finish it with the upgrades we have to do, or what's going on?
In conversations with GM Blue Plan, what we've done is they're willing to issue a substantial completion certificate as of November 30th, and it's just that final layer of pavement to be done in the spring that needs to be done.
Oh, okay, that's good. Thank you. Guess there's no update on the fence. No, okay, all right. If there's no other questions on those two items, I was getting a few calls and nice to have updates. Any new business? Seeing none, is there any notice of motions? I believe we have one that's going forward. And it's being recorded by the clerk.
So if you're referring to the earlier notice of motion in regarding to the correspondence, yes, that's already been reflected.
Thank you. So we're down to our closed session. That the Council of the Township of Georgia Bluffs move into closed session at 7:10 to 7 p.m. with interim CEO and clerk to discuss information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them. Someone move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. There's no discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion? It is carried. We are now in closed session. So, Madam Clerk, will you wait?
Just one second.
is aware that the Kemble grant was approved, because I did have a quick phone call with her, with the emails you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're back in open session. We only went in camera to discuss, we went in camera for, nothing more. Now have a confirming bylaw, the bylaw 2021-35 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on December 2nd, 2020. You read it first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, sealed the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Coburn. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? It's carried. I need, we know other business here tonight. One other motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Pringle, that we adjourn. All in favor? We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.